Hi, Mark White here. I wanted to take a minute. People have asked me just a bunch of questions about new taxes that are coming down the road that the new president and his team have talked about, increasing estate taxes and gift taxes and capital gains taxes. And I just want to take a minute this morning and talk about estate taxes, okay? And then I'll talk a little bit about what we've been hearing. And so if you don't mind, I'll give you a little bit of background into some things that might help you understand the chatter, I call it, that's going on in Washington right now. So I have a little PowerPoint here. We did this up years ago. We were talking about taxes and insurance. There's another question we get quite a bit: is life insurance taxable? Their life insurance agent told them that proceeds are not taxable. And then that left me to tell them that yes, life insurance proceeds are estate taxable in your estate if you got the right situation, but not income taxable. So that's two different things, two different taxes: the estate tax, the gift tax, and the the regular income tax, which takes up a good chunk of the Internal Revenue Code. So with that in mind, I've shared this. Something you should understand: under Section 2031, the gross estate. So we're talking estate taxes now. Don't lose it yet. We don't have an estate tax that, none of you listening are going to have an estate tax, at least at the moment, and I'm not sure when, if ever, that's going to change, but I'll address that. So to understand what gets taxed in your estate, the gross estate includes all property, whether it's real, personal, tangible, or intangible. And so those of you that are worried, well, is insurance included in my taxable estate? Then the answer is yes, if it's paid to your estate. Or if it's paid to a third party, let's say we paid it into a trust or we had it paid to the kids. If I have incidents of ownership over those proceeds. And what does that mean? Can I change it? Can I pull it back? Can I tweak it? Those are all things that bring that back into my estate. Now, right now, your estate is not taxable unless the value of your estate exceeds $11.7 million. And so that's very few folks that are, have a taxable estate. So keep that in mind for just a minute. I've got something to, I'm going to read part of this in just a second. All right. So a little history, if you will. This is kind of fun. Been doing this for a while. And so the history here is, this is where we've been. Back up. Incidents of ownership: right to cancel, assign, or surrender the policy, obtain a policy loan, change of beneficiary, blah, blah. These are all things that will bring the proceeds back into your estate. Back in the day, we had really low estate tax exemption. So the amount that you could pass free of estate tax, in 1997, that amount was $600,000. Which, by the way, is not much. And a lot of you now have a house that would trigger the estate tax if we had that same level of taxation. And the top estate tax was 55%. So if you owned, if you had an estate of $1 million, and actually that wasn't hard back then with a life insurance policy and a house, or maybe a cabinette on that, had an estate of $1 million, $600,000 was tax-free. $400,000 then would be subject to the 55% tax, or $220,000 tax on that estate. Then you can see how this grew. It took forever to change it. We went from the 600,000 to the 2 million. It took 11 years to do that, and we started chipping away at the tax rate. 2008, the exemption amount, the amount that you could pass free of estate tax, was $2 million, and the top tax rate was 45%. When we got to 2010, we actually got rid of the estate tax. Well, it was optional because there were some reasons why people wanted to maybe get their estate taxed, and that had to do with capital gains tax and setting a new basis. But you could choose. You could choose to not get taxed at all on anything. I think it was George Steinbrenner, owner of the Yankees. He passed away that year. A very large estate, no tax. He wasn't the biggest estate. There was a trucker, oil trucker down in Texas, owned hundreds of trucks. His estate was billions and billions of dollars. He died in 2010. His kids should still be grateful to him. No taxes. And then in 11, we pegged it at 5 million. The exemption amount was 5 million, but we dropped the tax to 35%. And then that started to grow till 2017. In 2018, you remember who was president at the time, got Congress to jump that exemption amount up to 11,180,000, and then the top tax rate at 40%. And so right now, 2021, the tax rate went to 11,700,000. Now, remember, that's per person. So a married couple would be 23,400,000. That's quite a bit. Very few people paying taxes. So let me read you the stats on that if I can. Let me see there. I was looking at the millions of folks. I was like 4 million people died in 2020. Of the 4 million, 4,100 filed an estate tax return because their estate was large enough to consider filing the estate tax, and approximately 1,900 of them would be taxable estates. So it's something you don't need to worry about. And by the way, they generated, interestingly enough, $16 billion in estate tax in 2020. Now, I know that sounds like a bit of money, and I'd be glad to have it. If I had some, I'd share it with you. But 16 billion is barely a drop in the bucket compared to the trillions and trillions that our budget is and how much is going to be spent. So let's get to 2022. Because the research and the reading that I've seen so far, and these are people that are far brighter than I am that follow this, I've considered all of this just chatter. And I know some of you have called, and we have this chatter going on that says, oh, wait, we're going to have to pay estate tax and capital gains tax is going to change. And yeah, maybe. But that 16 billion is not even a blip on the radar for the budget and how much they need to have and how much that gets paid out. So there's some agreement, there's some consensus among the commentators that if there's going to be change, it's not going to be this year. There's just nothing that needs to be done this year to worry about this. If something happens, it's going to be either late in the year and then pass next year, or late in the year and become effective next year. So what are we looking at? Well, the chatter, again, I'll let you know if it ever becomes more than chatter, but the chatter is we'll drop the exemption amount. Let's go back to something like $2 million. That's not going to happen. 3.5 million's got a much better chance than 2 million. The number that most of the commentators, and not everybody's in agreement on it, is that we'll probably, if there's a change, we'll probably see 500 or 5 million. So it'd be a 5 million estate, kind of like back in 2011, 35% tax rate. And the elevated tax rates or elevated exemption amounts that we have now, that disappears in 2025. And we go back to what was in existence prior to 2018. So that would be 2017 numbers and then adjusted. So it would still be less than, say, 6 million. And the tax rate is going to be about 40%. So really, that's what we're looking at. If you hear the $5 million amount and you think you still have an estate tax issue, call me. There's a bunch of things that we can do. I will do another little presentation and talk about how the gift tax ties into the estate tax. And because those two are connected, there's some things you could still do prior to the passage of anything that drops it down to 5 million. So that was quick, it was down and dirty. I thought the history of how much you could pass free of estate tax, the exemption amount, was just kind of interesting to me. Lets us know where we are now. I think it's fascinating that we're all worried about, we've got to pass the estate tax because, we're missing so much money. And the answer is, maybe. Even if you dropped it a few $1 million, you're going to find that the amount that adds to the budget is so very small. It's just not a high priority. As you know, the Biden group, they have a lot going on, and focusing on this is not on the radar right now. So again, if you hear stuff right now, it's still chatter. Promise that I'll get back to you and let you know if anything substantive happens. All right, well, have a great day. And now you know a little bit more about the estate tax and where you sit. Take care.